What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the LA Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Dyward. We got some big news today. I'm going to be joined by Joshua Kolak in just a second to talk about the news. When I was planning on recording today, the Rams had a big win over Houston. I don't think it was a letdown, but they had that fourth quarter with all the backups in and everyone was freaking out. So I was planning on coming on, talking like people down from the ledge, thing was okay. And then we were going to get to the Chargers game, which there was even more concern and despair. And so I was going to be like a therapy session. And then we get the news that Von Miller is going to be a Los Angeles Ram. And we had to change the script and talk about what this trade means for your Los Angeles Rams as they make a run for the Super Bowl. So let me get Josh in here right now to discuss what's going on, my man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Good chatting with you again. Obviously, we talk like every day, but good to get you on here. So let me just ask, what were your thoughts on the news? We all kind of figured something was going to happen. Like we thought when the move Kenny Young, everyone was like, they're just freeing up money, or everyone in the front office saying that. But all of us fans were like, something's going down.
Yeah, it was weird because so back to the Kenny Young trade, I was like, okay, and then the Deshaun Jackson news, I was like, okay, something's in the works, something's coming up. I'm not exactly sure what. And then it was kind of like, I don't know, like it was kind of silent. And then this morning I saw a tweet from Jalen Ramsey, and he was kind of like alluding to something happening. And I tweeted about it and I was like, what are we adding to the defense, And I saw him and Cam De Silva on Twitter kind of have a little back and forth, and Jalen Ramsey was just being really coy. And I was like, I don't know, like, is he just toying with us, or is this like something that's really about to happen?
Yeah.
And then, so I went to take a shower and everything, and I hop out the shower, and I actually saw, because of our Slack, I saw you guys like, what the heck, So I was like, okay, let me hop on Twitter. What happened? And I was just like, my jaw dropped. I was like, we've been kind of like, Rams fans have joked about getting Von Miller on this defense for years, and now it's like a reality. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I really didn't think the Broncos were going to move him. He's said many times he's a lifelong Bronco. He loves the city of Denver. He wants to be there. And most people, I would say at least half people that follow me and know my show know that I grew up in Denver. So my childhood team is the Broncos. Now I've lived in LA for 13 years, cover all the LA teams and have become a fan of these teams, because when you cover them every day, you become a fan of them. So I definitely am. But, the Broncos they're my childhood team. So Von Miller is someone that I loved and grew up watching. So if he was going to go anywhere, I'm very happy he came to LA and came to the Rams. But I just didn't think it was going to happen. But I think what it came down to, and we'll get more into what he means for this team and whatnot, but what it came down to is he's in the last year of his deal. The Broncos won yesterday, which is kind of odd because if they lost, I could have seen it more, but they won. So they're back to 500. But I think it was, the writing was on the wall. They weren't going to be able to re-sign him next year. They're in kind of a rebuild. I think the Teddy Bridgewater project or experiment is not going to happen long term. I think he'll probably finish the year, but it's not the long-term options. They're going to be starting over at quarterback again, probably starting over with the coaching staff again. So it's kind of like, does Von, I know he said he wants to be here, but does he really want to be here for a full rebuild when he's 32 years old? Or we can get something for him, get good value, set him to a contender where he knows the scheme, because, this Raheem Morris is essentially running a Fangio scheme in a sense with his own wrinkles, because Brandon Staley brought it from Vic Fangio. So I think it's just best for both worlds. What do you think? Do you think it was fair on both sides and everyone likes grading trades? But I think it really worked out for both teams in reality.
Yeah, I think given where both teams are currently in their roster builds and like their situation in the immediate future, I think it makes perfect sense for both teams. Obviously, for Von Miller, it's hard, I'm sure, to leave a city, leave a team that drafted you, that you won a Super Bowl with, that, the guy's going to be a Hall of Fame player someday, probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. And, you did the majority of that in Denver as a Bronco. So that's tough. But in terms of where both teams are right now, it just makes perfect sense. The Rams are clearly pushing their chips to the middle of the table and going for it. Sean McVay had been quoted at one point saying, like, if I don't get Aaron Donald a Super Bowl, like, I failed as a coach.
I love
and
that.
and clearly, like, this is them saying, like, we're going for it in full throttle.
Oh yeah.
And as far as for Denver goes, they get some solid draft capital to rebuild that roster, and they've still got some solid core pieces on that team too.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to be drafting pretty well, other than quarterbacks.
Yeah. And for the Broncos, it's going to be a rebuild, but it's not like the Lions rebuild where they are like full reconstruction. You said they have some good pieces there. They just need to get the quarterback right. I mean, this was going into the season, I said this was a playoff roster if your quarterback plays top 15. And unfortunately, I don't think Teddy's been horrible, but unfortunately, the defense actually has struggled more than everyone expected. They played good yesterday. But just to go before we talk about, how he fits with this defense, I at least want to read some of his accolades for what Rams fans are getting out of Von Miller. So number 2 overall pick, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, Super Bowl 50 champ, Super Bowl 50 MVP, 3-time All-Pro, 4-time second-team All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, 110.5 sacks, which is franchise best for the Denver Broncos, 2 interceptions, 509 tackles, 26 forced fumbles, 142 tackles for loss, and 225 quarterback hits. And coming into this week, he did not play last week, but still ranked 19th in the league in QB pressures, has over 5 sacks. So now the Rams have 3 players in the top 20 in pressures. And again, Von didn't play last week or yesterday, I guess. And he only played half the game against the Browns because he went out with that little ankle injury. And so you have now Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and Von Miller, who are all top 20 in pressures and sacks. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Ben Albright had actually said that prior to Von Miller sitting out that he was, I think, top 5 in pressures.
Yeah, before, exactly.
And that's insane. But when you then consider the fact that the Rams already had one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, if not the best, I mean,
and Leonard Floyd's no slouch either.
Yeah, and we've talked about for years, Aaron Donald faces double and triple teams, and who's going to take that off of him. And I think this year we've seen Leonard Floyd really step up after kind of a late breakout year last year. But everybody kind of said, well, it's because of the attention Aaron Donald's getting. This year, he's kind of, I feel like, really winning his battles more on his own as opposed to just because Aaron Donald's taking the attention away. Yeah. But now you add Von Miller, and it's like, you can't double or triple anybody. Like, if they're all on the field at the same time, you're talking about multiple Hall of Fame players getting one-on-ones. Yeah. And if I was a quarterback, I'd be terrified right now.
Yeah, it's not fair. The question I have, and I've been thinking about this all morning, and I love the move for the Rams. I think you can never have, everyone talks about it's not a 2-position league. There's a lot of important things, but everyone says, you have the quarterback is probably the most important, and then pass rush is probably the second most important. And you can never have too many pass rushers. So I love the move. But I think a lot of people, and myself included, when you really break down the defense, you would say, okay, that wasn't really their weakness. Maybe inside backer, we saw Ernest Jones play lights out yesterday, but, he's against the Texans. The secondary has been kind of banged up. They should get Darius Williams back hopefully soon, but they've been questionable at times. Obviously, everyone wants to talk about the return game, but never going to make a big move for a return guy. If anything, they still might sign someone, a free agent, to come in. But I would say pass rush wasn't really an area of need, but now they just got a lot better and richer. Does that, would you have thought they would have done another move, or was this just one of those that says, hey, if we can get that after the quarterback faster than anybody else, it's going to make everyone else better, so it doesn't matter?
Yeah, so I think I know when they traded Kenny Young, a lot of fans were kind of speculating like maybe they go and get Myles Jack. First of all, I never thought they were going to go for an inside linebacker. They just don't seem intent on valuing that position too highly.
And not to cut you off, but if you're going to trade your current best inside linebacker for pennies, you're not going to package him for an upgrade. They're not going to go out and be able to do it for something else. So,
right. Yeah. And then in terms of, I think the other big thought process was going after a corner. And that made a little more sense to me. But I also think, and I may be in the minority on this, I don't really know. It seems like Rams fans especially are very like 50-50 on it, but I think our secondary is really good. Say what you want, but Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams are excellent. Dante Dion is playing excellent now that he's been brought up. you know, people knocked Robert Rochelle, but he's a rookie from a small school. Like there was always
Totally.
going to be ups and downs for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not anything I didn't expect. Our safeties are finally starting to play better. I think they're playing with a lot more confidence now, it seems. And so, and I also want to highlight, you know, I'm stoked about Ernest Jones. He did exactly what I thought he could do when I scouted him. I mean, the dude is just, he's an animal, and I think he's only going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as a rookie, there's going to be ups and downs there, but I don't think the defense is as bad as a lot of people think it is. I mean, I think we're a top 10 defense
I don't.
already.
I really don't. Go. Sorry. I'll jump in a second. Finish your
Yeah.
thought.
So for me, yeah, like I said, like they were already, I think, first in pressures. And now you add Von Miller, and so it's like, it wasn't really a need. But I think you also saw like the biggest thing that I think killed our defense against the Cardinals was not keeping those rush lanes, not being able to quite get home. And we saw that a few times this year. We saw it in the Colts game where they constantly were like right there and just couldn't get him down.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about bringing pressure from all angles constantly, and now they can go back to their initial plan of rotating guys like Terrell Lewis, like Justin Hollins when he comes back healthy,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. It's hard to beat a team when not only do you have that star power rushing the passer, but it's a constant barrage. Like, oh, you know, Von Miller needs to take a play or two off. Okay, in comes Terrell Lewis with fresh legs.
Yeah.
And talk about facing that when it comes down to the fourth quarter
Oh,
or when the Rams have a lead. It's just, I honestly don't see how. I mean, it's definitely, there's no negatives to this trade, in my opinion.
well, and that's just it. When you get to that fourth quarter and you have that rotation of Vaughn, Floyd, even Obo, and then obviously
Yeah,
Terrell
Obo.
Lewis and Justin Hollins when he comes back. And I mean, those guys are going to be fresh. It's not like you're playing Vaughn and Justin or Vaughn and Leonard Floyd the entire game because you're rotating. And I think that is more dangerous. I talked, preseason how it was going to be Floyd and then your 3-man rotation of Hollins, Lewis, and Obo. And I thought that was almost better because you get those 3 guys fresh. You're not forcing Terrell Lewis or someone to have to play 60 minutes and risk injury. You're keeping them as a rotation. And then the offenses and tackles can't really ever get a grip on a guy because everyone has different pass routes, different
Right.
skill sets. And they're like, well, now I'm going against this guy and he has a very different skill set as opposed to this guy. And so it's an onslaught of talent now that the Rams can throw out of every quarterback. And, poor Ryan Tannehill gets to see it first thing on Sunday with no Derrick Henry.
Yeah, no Derrick Henry. That's a recipe for
Yeah.
just not a good day.
They just signed, as we went live, Adrian Peterson, just to, add reinforcement to their backfield. But, he's like 85 years old, so he still can play, I think. But I don't think he's not Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and I doubt that he'll play a whole lot, if at all, this week, just because, I mean, it's going to take getting acclimated a little bit. But, I mean, if anybody could come in and do it, it'd be Adrian Peterson. The guy's just a star. But
in terms of the defense, because I don't understand the negativity, I guess. And I don't think it's all fans, but Twitter is very a different place where fans express opinions, and a lot of it is negative in general. I'm not saying Rams fans, just people in general kind of convolute some negativity on Twitter. As great as Twitter is, I love it for other reasons. But this defense, even after yesterday's game, obviously before the starters went out, they allowed 73 total yards. So the defense was playing lights out. After yesterday's game are, according to PFF, which is subjective, I always say that, but they do give you a good barometer. They have them rated as the second best defense. They're top 5 in basically almost every statistical category. And I don't see where the thought is that this is just a terrible, terrible defense. I don't get it.
Yeah. So I've talked to a few people about this. One, I think fans are more reactionary. And not to toot anybody's own horn, but I think if you've played the game of football, if you've really studied the game of football for any amount of time other than just being just a fan, you learn to not focus so much on moments, but the overall picture.
Totally.
And I've talked with a few people. It's easy to get down on a team when you're like, oh, Jared Goff just threw a 63-yard screen pass to DeAndre Swift for a touchdown. The defense is terrible. Like, how do you not stop that? And it's like, yeah, but that was one moment within an entire game of moments. And when you look at the overall statistics and just the way the Rams scheme is supposed to work, I know everybody complains about the off coverage, myself included at times, because even when you know the game really well, sometimes you still get hung up on those moments.
Mm-hmm.
People really need to take a step back and look at, how many yards per reception our team's completing. The Rams are one of the best in the league at that. We're one of the best in turnovers, pressures and sacks, points per game. I don't care if you lead the league in yards. If you're still stopping them from scoring touchdowns at the end of the day, and you have an offense that can put up 30 points or more each and every week, no matter who you face, it's going to be tough to beat you.
Yep.
And so, I think the Rams in all the important categories of defense are anywhere from top 3 to top 10. And to me, with our offense, I don't see how you really knock it too much. And I think another big aspect of it is, we saw Brandon Staley have the number 1 rated defense here, and they were just insane. I mean, they shut everybody down at will. But people need to remember, it's hard to replicate that success year in and year out.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with, we lost key players, whether they were starters or role players. That makes a huge difference. And if you go from number 1 defense to, let's just say PFF has them 2.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of other people will say top 10, somewhere between 2 and 7. That's not, you're not a bad defense. You're in the top third of the league with probably a top 3 offense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
We can argue special teams all day, but
yeah, that's a different conversation. But they are.
At least we have a kicker.
Yes. Sorry, I'm counting right now, and I'm very bad at counting. They are 9th right now in points per game at allowing 21 points per game, which
fix that a little bit. You gotta look. 22 points came yesterday, and to me, those don't count at all.
Nope, those don't count. And you gave up a bad game against Arizona, giving up 37.
Right.
Outside of that, you're probably top 3. The number 1 team right now, number 1 defense in the NFL is the Bills, giving up 15. Ironically, the Broncos at number 2, giving up 17. So you take out those again yesterday, not even take out, because that's literally, it was second-string players, third-string players playing in the entire fourth quarter. And I've said this, I saw you said on Twitter, a lot of people have said it, is you're never going to have a game. And if you are, you're not going to be very good in general. This is not a Rams issue. This is a professional football issue where you're going to have 7 to 11 backups playing in a in a regular season or playoff game. You might sub 1 or 2 in with injuries. And if you have 6 or 7 guys out, then sorry, you're probably not gonna make the playoffs. Cause I talk about it all the time on my show. The best teams are the healthiest teams. That's the war of attrition to get to the playoffs, because the skew of talent is so close in the NFL. From, I would say, from 1 to 32 is maybe greater, but from 3 to 28 is so slim. It's about who's healthiest, and in reality, probably who has the best quarterback. And so you're never going to see 11 backups in or 22 backups in. So everyone that was concerned about that fourth quarter, just forget about it. It was 38-0. That's the end of the game for me. Maybe the game ends up, if they keep everyone in, at 45-7. Maybe they do give up 1 touchdown, but still, I don't think anyone would be upset with that, right?
But and on the flip side, if people want to freak out about that, it's imagine if you left Matthew Stafford in there and he throws 2 more touchdowns, and let's say we win 56-0 because we played all the starters, and he tears his ACL and is out for the season, and now you're looking at John Wolford. And I love Wolford as much as anybody for what he did last year, but come on, at that point, you're not thinking Super Bowl at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Get the guys out of there, give them the fourth quarter off, help them coach up a little bit, and just get out of the stadium at that point. The game's over. And I know I saw a lot of people saying well, you should still stick to the script and run, the offense the same way, yada, yada, yada. I get that sentiment, but at the same time, I think they're just trying to just get out of there, just burn the clock, get out of there healthy, out of there unscathed, and call it a day. They won big.
Yeah, at that point, the coaching staff, and honestly, the players themselves are probably thinking let's just get out of this. Let's get out without any major issues. because God forbid anybody important to this team, not that anybody's not important, but there's a difference obviously between, Aaron Donald versus, Bobby Brown, the rookie who started his first game or played his first game yesterday,
Exactly. And I don't know if anyone saw either, but on offense in that fourth quarter, Kevin O'Connell was calling plays, had the headset as opposed to Sean McVay. So even that, you're basically like, hey, let's go, let the guys have some fun out there. And
right.
You'd like to see them play better, obviously. I'm not saying like there can't be some criticism a little bit, but freak out is, I don't know. I was like shocked at how upset people were. I'm like,
yeah, like it's
what are you upset about?
For me, it's almost like Sean McVay was just like, okay, the fourth quarter is a little bit of preseason action.
Yeah.
We don't freak out in preseason when it's second and third stringers and they get beaten by the other team because you're like, it doesn't matter. Like, everybody came out healthy. They got a little bit of game reps, because I think the important thing for some of those young guys like the Bobby Browns and guys like that who are maybe even this year have no role really up to this point. It's not so much about like, let's see what they can really do. It's about, hey, give them an opportunity just to get acclimated to the speed of the NFL. You hear a lot of guys always say like, that's the hardest transition, like going from, even playing at, you play at Alabama and you go to the NFL and you're like, it's like playing Georgia every week, know, like it's just different. There are no, you're not going to play South Alabama Western State University anymore.
Yeah. Unless you go to Alabama, then you get to play the schools all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. You're always going to have one of those games when you play for Alabama. So,
So I love what the Rams do because I think it's very progressive. It's a different mentality of, everyone says the F the picks is the meme with Les Snead and whatnot.
It's literally my header on Twitter.
Yeah, as it is many, and it's so fun and true. But then there's the other side of the coin where people are concerned, usually not even Rams fans. It's usually the other people in the NFL. They're like, well, it's going to bite them one day. It's going to screw them one day. Sean McVay won't have a first round pick till he's like 40 and he's been there since he's 30. But I think that they've figured something out that they say, you know what, as long as because the NFL allows you to trade up till I think right now 2024 is the latest picks they can trade. So it's what, a 3-year basically gap. And they figured out and said, you know what, as long as we do our contracts right, which they've messed that up a lot. Like the Rams have made mistakes, absolutely, but they've been able to lessen the damage and put the fires out and get players that work in their scheme. And they have great coaches or one of the best head coaches in the NFL. And I think that teams are going to start being like, okay, the Rams are onto something here. Like they have been good for now 5 years. They're always in the playoffs. They're always competitive.
Broke the mold.
Yeah. Like I love it. Let me just read this before I ask you the true question, but does it, and I know you're a draft guy, so I know covering this team come draft season is going to be real boring for us because there's not going to be a lot to do.
I love this. Give me the Jordan Fullers in the 6th round. I love it.
Okay, well, good. Well, yeah, you'll have to deep dive more because Josh is going to do a lot of our draft coverage for the Rams. Coming up with a podcast, actually, we'll plug that right now, NFL Futures Podcast on the LA Football Network. But here's the Rams 2022 draft. Round 1, traded to the Lions. Round 2, traded to the Broncos. Round 3, traded to the Broncos, but they will have a comp pick for round 3 for the Brad Holmes hire. Round 4, traded to the Texans. They have a 5th round pick. Round 6, traded to the Patriots. And they have 2 7th round picks, their own and the Dolphins pick. So currently right now they have a comp 3, a 5, and 2 7. So you do have 4 picks still. Does that concern? I don't think it does. Obviously, what we just said, but does that concern you at all? Or you're just like, I love it. It's great.
I'll be honest. Like if that was really what I thought we'd end up with at the end of the draft, yeah, I'd be slightly concerned. I think the Rams draft really well anyways, throughout the draft. So I'm always like, I know I've posted it before and been like, these are all the, Cooper Kupp was a 3rd round pick. Tyler Higbee was a 4th round pick, et cetera, Jordan Fuller in the 6th round, all of that. But there's also going to be some 4th round and some 6th round comp picks. I believe that they're going to get in the offseason.
John Johnson and
as well as, again, do we trade Deshaun Jackson for a pick or 2? I don't know how that's going to work out right now. We're still in limbo there. But also, Les Snead wheels and deals however he sees fit to build the roster, which, I mean, that could be anywhere from, hey, in the 3rd round, we're going to trade down into the 4th round and acquire more mid-round picks so that we can add that depth to a team that is already ready to compete still. Or it could be in the form of, hey, we're going to package a couple 6th round picks to trade up into the 5th round to get this guy who fell. And we don't really know why he fell, but we like him. You know, I mean, you talk about getting guys like Robert Rochelle in the 4th round.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's going to have struggles initially, but when you combine his athleticism, his work ethic, what the staff says about him, you project that out 2 to 3 years down the road. And you're like, man, the guy's, I don't want to say he's the next Jalen Ramsey. That's a huge leap and a huge leap of faith. But I mean, if you can be half of Jalen Ramsey, like, you're a good starting corner in this league.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think he's shown, and we knew this when he was drafted, the athletic ability there. And then it was more about getting him up to the NFL speed, like you talked about earlier. And we've seen him get better week in and week out. So they truly have great scouting, and they know what they're doing. They have a great coaching staff, even though it changes every single year. But your guy at the top is the same, and that's the important thing. And then now with the quarterback and Matthew Stafford, the offense is clicking, and now you get Von Miller on the defense to add to what you already have. I mean, this team, in my opinion, I try not to be a homer. I try to keep it very real. I still thought this was the front runner to win the Super Bowl. I know after the Arizona game, there's a lot of concern, then a sloppy Seattle game. But even in the NFC, you have the Buccaneers, who the Rams beat, and they just lost yesterday to a Trevor Siemian second half led Saints team. Yeah. You have the Packers, who actually are looking very good after that week 1 loss. Seattle's not as good. The Niners aren't as good as everyone thought. I mean, Arizona is obviously 7-1 also, but they're still the Cardinals to me. Like, until they truly get over that hump, to me, they're still the Cardinals. I don't want to sound disrespectful, but to me, the Rams are still the front runner, and now you get Von Miller.
Yeah, with the Cardinals, I've said to a lot of people that, you know, there's a difference between being good in the regular season and being good in the playoffs. And the Cardinals don't have a whole lot of guys who are experienced there, whereas the Rams do.
Yeah.
And sometimes that makes the difference.
Including the coach.
Exactly, including the coach.
Yeah.
And I just want to really quick highlight too for the Rams organization, like, they're doing all of this, getting these players, drafting these players well, coaching very well, developing talent, and they're doing it every year. Their talent is just getting poached. I mean, coaches, front office personnel. Yep. I think they lost something like 7 or 9 guys this offseason.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, they're tied for first place in the division. They're a lot of people's NFC favorite for the Super Bowl.
And let me say, I know there's fans that for some reason are contentious towards Raheem Morris, but if this continues, Raheem Morris will be poached next year too. He'll probably be a head coach next year.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I completely agree.
Kevin O'Connell's probably not far behind him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. And it's both sides of the ball too. Like, Sean McVay has constantly had to contend with people taking his coordinators on offense and defense, taking position coaches to become coordinators. It's just, I don't think there's a whole lot of teams in the league that could go through that much turnover in the personnel department and still continue to. I mean, Sean McVay hasn't had a losing season yet. I mean, let's just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, guys like Kyle Shanahan have one winning season.
Oh yeah. Everyone knows,
but I'm always going to throw that out there.
Everyone knows my thoughts on Kyle Shanahan. I'm glad it's finally people are starting, like, in the media being like, oh, maybe he's not as great as a coach as we've all pumped him up to be. I mean, coming into this year, he was considered an elite coach by all national media.
Oh, I mean, people were saying like, oh, he's head and shoulders above Sean McVay. And I'm like, I get the injuries and all of that, but at the end of the day, it's about results, no matter what happens. And again, like, if you want to point to injuries, then for Sean McVay, say, hey, our staff's been poached every single year.
And with injuries, what I always say too is there's absolutely a luck factor in injuries, bad luck, whatever you want to call it. There's absolutely stuff that just happens, especially with like bone breaks. Like, bone breaks are just bad luck. But a lot of like soft tissue issues, ACLs, stuff like tears, stuff like that, has a lot more to do. Yes, there's luck, but has a lot more to do with your program outside of Sundays, how your performance is in practice, how much you're pushing players, how much you're not pushing players, what the work at regiment's like, who you have in there as your performance guys that are actually pushing your players and making them better. So yeah, there's luck, but some of that too finally does come down to coaching. It's like, okay, they're doing something in the building that's not right. Because look at the Chargers, even like how bad their injury woes were. And then this new staff comes in and they've been night and day different this year.
I was just about to mention the Chargers when you were talking about it. So that's perfect because they were for years. It was like their training staff needs to figure something out. They're constantly, all their star players are hurt, you know,
And it's
and
as
that
simple
kills
as
team.
this, because the Chargers even still have had a lot of guys on the injury report throughout the week. But what the difference is you'll see some teams say, we'll talk about Austin Eckler. He came up in the injury report, didn't really practice all week with a sore hip. Some teams will, and the players want to play regardless. They're like, yeah, I'm a little sore. That's part of being in the NFL. So other staffs, maybe the Niners are doing this. I don't cover them, so I don't know for sure, but I know maybe Anthony Lynn and that his old staff did this. Okay, you're good. Like, you feel good. Okay, let's push through it. Let's practice. Let's get you prepared for the game.
Right.
And then you work it too hard, and then a big injury comes. Whereas now the new staff, and now what the Rams have done is, oh, you're a little nicked up. All right, cool. Shut it down. Take it easy. Watch film. Mentally prepare, and then we'll have you ready and fresh for Sunday. So people see like, oh, well, they still have guys in the injury report, but those are literally like little nicks and stuff where they're just like monitoring it because they see the full term picture of we need you in January. We don't care a ton. Obviously, they need to win games still, but we're not going to risk something in October and November. And that's how winning organizations are run and winning coaches are run, and why Sean McVay's never had a losing season and why Kyle Shanahan's had one.
Right. Yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, had to get on here. This is a great news for the Rams. Pump for Von Miller. It's I said it in the beginning, it's bittersweet as a fan of the Broncos, but so glad he's coming to the Rams, who I am now a fan of and obviously cover the team. But for fans out there that are thinking about it, this would be similar to like the Rams trading Aaron Donald towards the end of his career. It's just like, oh man, for those Bronco fans, that's just deflating, he's the face of the franchise.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're a hockey fan at all. But I'm a huge St. Louis Blues fan because I'm from the St. Louis area. And my wife was kind of like, because she doesn't really follow football or anything, but she listens to me because it's something I love, right?
There you go. Yeah.
And I was so stoked about it, and she just kept laughing at me like, what exactly does this Von Miller, what does this mean? And I was like, okay, so it's like if the Blues were close or were a Stanley Cup contender and traded and got Sidney Crosby when he was still playing at an elite level and healthy. And she was like, oh, okay, because she's a hockey fan. So
yeah,
she was like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, that's really cool. And I was like, yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, because Von Miller is still playing at an elite level. He's still an elite player. And like we said in the beginning, with the amount of talent they have, he's not going to be forced to play 40 snaps a game. Like, he can come in, and can you imagine a fresh Von Miller in the fourth quarter? Like, with the Rams, with their offense, so they have a big lead probably. Good luck.
Yeah, it's put it this way. Once the Rams get up 10 points on you, how do you make that up?
Yeah.
Like, really, how do you make that up?
Yeah, good luck. So let's wrap up with these last two thoughts. First, we got to talk a little bit about Tutu Atwell, another guy that everyone on Twitter is just hating on. I've seen many people say just cut him. I'm like, all right, let's not go that far. Like, yeah, he hasn't.
A little extreme.
Yeah, you got to give the guy. I mean, Van Jefferson last year had 19 receptions in the entire season, his rookie year. 19 receptions. Obviously, we see how good he is now. So I'm not saying Tutu is the same player as Van, but give the guy a rookie season, right? Like, he was going to be wide receiver 5 anyway coming in this year. Give him some time to like work into it. The problem I had with the pick at all was that once he was picked, the thought was, and the coaching staff originally said no and then kind of delved into it, the thought was, okay, that's going to be our return guy. Well, he never did returns in college. Yeah. I don't know why we all thought that. And then when he wasn't doing it, it was like, well, this is why we drafted him. What a waste of a pick. I always just thought he was a long-term future project that 2 years from now, we're saying, oh, damn, this guy adds a nice element to this offense. And he's young, he's quick, he's fresh. What's your thoughts on Tutu, though? And what do you do with him at this point this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say on the outside looking in because we don't see him in practice and things like that. We don't see how he's progressing, how he's taking coaching and all of that stuff. I know Sean McVay kind of made the comment he wants to see more urgency from him. That's a tough thing for me to hear and know exactly what he means, you know, because that could mean a lot of things. That could mean he needs to have a better work ethic, or it could mean, you know, he's dropping a lot of balls in practice, or
just mentally not getting the playbook as quick. Like, it could be
and a few factors here is one, like you said, he was never supposed to be a guy who was going to be have heavy involvement in this offense this year. So you've got time to develop him. I think with the Deshaun Jackson thing, I think a lot of fans kind of went into panic mode and they were like, "Oh, we need Tutu to step up now." And it's like, they
I haven't
really
needed
don't.
either of
Like
them.
Deshaun Jackson, as good as he's been for us, he's only caught 8 passes.
Yeah.
That's not production that you just are like. That's not going to cripple your offense all of a sudden.
Yeah, shouldn't be a concern.
I think Atwell had the issue where he was out with COVID for a while in the offseason. And as a rookie, that's tough.
Oh, yeah.
And that might be, he may be behind in the playbook because of it.
Yeah, missed most of training camp.
Yeah, you also got to think as a wide receiver 5 or 6, you're not getting a whole lot of reps in practice. That makes it tough to develop. So I would just urge fans, be patient.
Yeah.
We saw people last year kind of panic about Van Jefferson. We drafted him at 57 and people were like, this is a luxury pick. What are we doing? And then fans kind of hopped on the bandwagon and they were like, oh, he's going to replace Josh Reynolds. And then he didn't. And then fans were like, this was a wasted pick. He's a bust. He's not going to amount to anything. And then this year he's going off every time he gets an opportunity. And people are like, he's great. He's this stellar player.
Great pick. What a steal at 57.
So have I been disappointed with Atwell when he's been in, particularly on special teams? Yes, I have. I'm not going to lie about that. But we don't need to cut him. Give him time to develop. Give him time to get right. Some players just take longer to transition to the NFL. And I have a feeling that's the case here. And at the end of the day, is it a sunk opportunity cost if he never works out? Yes. But I also don't think it's something that's going to kill this team. So calm down, everybody. Relax.
Yeah. Second round pick. That's a luxury pick for the Rams. We don't even have those half the time. So
yeah. And this time next year, if he's catching, 2 balls and that's it, and he's fumbling and, there's reports coming out that he doesn't have the playbook yet. And then, okay, it's time to have a little bit of concern, but give it a year, give it some more time. Just be patient. I have a feeling that he'll come around. I don't think he's ever going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for the Rams.
No,
but that's not what you wanted. You wanted a guy who can stretch the field, do some of those gadget things, play here and there, and be that explosive element. And I think he'll eventually develop into that.
And we saw in the latter half of preseason, he was actually pretty productive with Bryce Perkins at quarterback. Like he had some games where he had quite a few catches and was moving the sticks. So it's not like the guy can't play. Just we haven't needed him. So I don't know why everyone's so concerned about it.
Exactly. And again, like I said, when you're not getting the reps in practice, I mean, it's you see in the fourth quarter yesterday, why can't the offense move the ball? Well, how many practice reps has John Wolford had? Buddy Howell, how many opportunities has he had? It's tough to be in a rhythm and stack, good performance on good performance when you're just not getting those reps. So
Exactly. So I'm not concerned about it. Obviously, you're not gonna cut him, and they shouldn't. I mean, the guy still deserves a raw spot. He's a second-round pick. They got his skill set for a reason. They just haven't really needed exactly what he's done, and hopefully he'll develop better. So last thing, Josh, we'll wrap this up. Again, huge news for the Rams. Trading for Von Miller, this is great, but let's talk about Deshaun Jackson quickly, who requested a trade, or the team and him mutually agreed to let him seek a trade. I've made it a point. I'm never going to talk bad about a player. I don't know them personally. I don't know their background. I don't know how they are unless I have actually met them, but I've never met Deshaun. So wish him all the best. But it is strange to me. You're on a 7-1 team. And at the age of your career, in my opinion, I would think, okay, yeah, I get you said he has 8 catches. Like the guy has not been utilized as much as they probably told him when they signed him in the offseason. But you're on a Super Bowl contending team. I just don't know why he would really want to be traded and risk playing in a Super Bowl just so he can maybe have 1 or 2 more catches a game.
Yeah, so I know that his contract's pretty incentive laden. So I mean, obviously, everybody's going to have different motivations. At the end of the day, the NFL is a business. So we saw the Rams. The Rams were quick to trade Kenny Young, and people were kind of like, "Oh, I'm so mad about it." And it's a business. With the Deshaun Jackson thing, you have to kind of keep that same energy when it comes to players wanting out for whatever reason too. It's kind of like, we don't know that guy's financial situation. We don't know what his motivation is. unless we hear something concrete that's like, oh, Sean McVay punched his mom in the face, it's kind of like, okay, like it's probably a combination of things. He probably wants to be utilized more. He probably wants to hit those incentives. And at the end of the day, maybe winning a Super Bowl isn't the number one priority on his list.
Which is fine.
And in the Rams defense, they've clearly witnessed, hey, we can move the ball and we can still throw deep with or without him.
Yeah.
We think we can win a Super Bowl with or without him. He was a luxury for us. So if he does, we'd love to have him, but if he doesn't want to be here, then that's fine. We'll move on. We'll figure something out, and that'll be that. I love Deshaun as a player. I'm not going to talk bad about him. I don't know. And who knows? Maybe this Von Miller trade, maybe he's like, you know what? Maybe I'll stay.
Yeah.
I doubt it, but
I know. I kind of think so. The trade deadline's tomorrow, I believe, 2 p.m. Pacific, I think, is the time. I know it's for sure tomorrow. I can't remember the time off the top of my head, but so he'll have until tomorrow to seek a trade partner and see if the Rams can get a 6th-round pick or something back for him. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up falling through and he ends up still with the Rams. It does make it a little more odd now that he was a healthy scratch yesterday and didn't play because of the news of him wanting a trade. That does make it more interesting and how he'll be received back if he doesn't get a trade. And again, it's a business. I don't think there'll be any contention by any means, but it's always just an odd thing when someone requests a trade, they get scratched from the game. And then if they're not traded, it's like, okay, well, I'm back in the building now. Let's get back to it and forget that ever happened. So do you ultimately think he gets moved? Or do you think a team really wants his services, I guess, a playoff bound team? Because they're not going to trade him to like the Texans. It'll be to a playoff.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be a playoff contender in the AFC. I think the Chargers make sense. The Chiefs, if they can get their act right, might make sense.
The Bills,
so I think you'd be looking at somebody like that because clearly they're not gonna want to face him in the NFC.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I don't know. My gut feeling tells me that he'll probably get moved for a late round pick. But it could be nothing and they could cut him. Again, it kind of comes down to, we don't know what this situation is behind closed doors. Is there that contentious relationship because of this now to where, the team is like, okay, if you don't want to be here, we're going to cut you if we can't trade you, because there's no sense in having you here disgruntled and becoming an issue in the locker room. At the same time, if they're like, hey, we've explored trades, you and your agent have explored trades, excuse me, and nobody's stepping forward to give us anything for you, maybe then he and his agent are like, all right, well then let's win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Sean McVay could even say, we'll try to throw you the ball a couple more times than we have. And, maybe next year you can sign a big deal elsewhere after you win a Super Bowl. So
yeah, I kind of am thinking that he'll end up staying. I think that will end up happening. I hope so, because I think he does bring something to the offense. And I have said, I think I wish they would use him a little bit more. They haven't really needed it because the offense has worked, but I thought he had such a good training camp, and we saw him in training camp do things differently than just running 9 routes. Like he was doing underneath routes and stuff. And if he can do that, then defenses aren't going to key on him just to, just running the 9 routes. So I think hopefully they can. Yeah, Michael, welcome to the show quickly. We are wrapping up, but we talked about earlier if you want to go back and listen, but yeah, Von's got plenty of juice. He's was 5th in pressures before he tweaked his ankle a week and a half ago. So now after a week and a half of not playing, he's still 19th in pressures, has 5 sacks, could definitely be utilized very, very well. He's healthy now, so he'll be good to go Sunday night if the Rams want to use him that quickly. So plenty of juice left in the tank. I think he could still play, especially with the rotation, as we've talked about, this Rams team has. So they don't have to put him out there on every single snap. And he can easily play into his late 30s, I think, if he wants to. But he will be a free agent next year, so it'll be interesting to see if the Rams will re-sign him after this year or whatnot. But certainly a great move, and it's a good day to be a Rams fan today.
Absolutely.
So, with that, Josh, I think we can wrap it up. So thank you, everyone, for tuning into the LA Football Podcast, the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network. Got to say, while everyone's in here still, we're doing an event at Golden Road Brewery this Sunday before the Titans game. We are going to be recording live at Golden Road. We'll be there at 11 a.m., recording at 1, and then we're taking a party bus from Golden Road to SoFi, round trip for the Rams Titans game. Head to LAFBnetwork.com, the LAFB locker room right there. You can reserve your seat on the bus today. Would love to see some of the Ramley there and hang out. So, Josh, thanks for jumping on with me, breaking this trade down. Let's go Rams. It's going to be good.
Yeah, thanks for having me on as always, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Follow Josh at real_Kylo on Twitter, myself at Ryan Dyer at LAFB, and the main account at LAFB Network. Got plenty of stuff at LAFBnetwork.com for all of your Rams content needs. Everyone enjoy the day. We'll talk throughout the week. Josh, take care, brother. Appreciate you.